Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. Today, we're going to talk about thyroid, possibly autoimmune. We might get to autoimmune next episode. We're just going to see where the conversation goes.
Yeah. And this started with us kind of talking behind the scenes about experiences we've had with clients or even you yourself with like elevated thyroid antibodies and, different ways to try to support it. And so I think there's a couple of things that people maybe overlook when it comes to the thyroid. I know we talk a lot about circadian support, and I think we need to go there. There's potentially some nutritional things we could discuss. And I also especially want to talk about the nervous system and the connection there and how actually getting in nature more is one of the best things you can do for nervous system regulation.
110%, because there are a lot of nervous system programs out there, and I've heard a lot of great things about them. And I've done a lot of Irene Lyons stuff. I love it. Always send people there. But, a lot of people don't necessarily have the money to spend on some of these programs. I totally get that. And I think that there are some simple ways that you can start to kind of support your nervous system and to become more resilient, which is the goal of this nervous system work is not to never have anything go wrong and never get upset and never experience a stressful reaction. It is to experience something stressful or difficult and not let it completely tank your body. And
it's
to be resilient to it.
Yeah. Stress and bounce back, right? Like we want your autonomic, basically it's like a thermostat, right? Like, we want it to be able to be set, have a set point where it's regulated, right? You feel your body feels supported and it feels safe. And then if you balance out, your body says, okay, I know what to do to get back to that set point. There's a lot of ways to support the nervous system, but what's free and not talked about as enough is actually getting into nature. So I want to really quickly connect thyroid to this, right?
Yes.
One of the reasons why the thyroid will downregulate, right? It'll downregulate metabolic function. It'll downregulate because it thinks that it's in a period of survival threat.
Scarcity.
Right?
Attack.
Scarcity, attack, exactly. And so if that's the case, then it's going to say, okay, well, we're not going to increase mitochondrial function and metabolic function in all the tissues. We got to downregulate, and definitely Carrie's not in a safe space to make a baby. So let's downregulate the hormones of fertility. Let's downregulate non-essential things such as skin cell turnover, hair growth, right? Fingernail. So that's why there's a lot of connections between hypothyroid and dry skin, brittle hair, brittle nails. It can slow digestion, right? You're not going to have enough energy to potentially go into increasing stomach acid production. So there's the body's
premature hair graying. I've seen that a lot.
Totally. Yeah. So it's this idea that our thyroid glands aren't out to get us. They're just responding to the environment that we're giving it. And the body is looking for two things. Is Carrie in a safe space, right? Is it safe and is nutrition plentiful? Or is Carrie in a survival threat and scarcity? Right. And every single moment, the body is trying to key in on that and decide how it needs to partition its metabolism, partition hormones. And so the reason why I think getting into nature is so key is because people underestimate the signaling that we get that brings us into that state of safety when we tap into nature. And I want to go into all of those different details there, as opposed to living in an indoor environment. And there's 3 signals in an indoor environment, besides the people maybe that are stressing you out, or your actual occupation, or the toxins even, right, in your interior environment. But through our lens, the 3 signals that I see are the non-native EMFs, the flicker from artificial lights, and the artificial lights themselves, right? Creating a circadian mismatch.
Yep.
Those 3 things alone can put your autonomic nervous system into a heightened stress response.
Yep.
And so it's always going to be in that state of threat, anxiety, downregulation of metabolism, downregulation of thyroid. And so if you can recognize that, if we can mitigate that, right? So there is a component that we talk about mitigating our interior environments, but then go outside.
Yes.
Find a green space, find a space where you can see water, flowers, birds, right? Like find something that is a more natural space and go out there.
Without your phone.
Out your phone, please. And if you don't feel safe without your phone, turn it off. Airplane mode.
Make the commitment not to check your Instagram, your Facebook, your email, your WhatsApp, your whatever, your text. Like just make the commitment to separate from those things to fully be present in that environment. And that can be really tough for people and cause anxiety, but it's necessary, right?
Well, that's what you just said though, right? We're designed to be addicted to those things.
Yes.
So that's the whole thing. Like, so one of my favorite ways to actually mitigate that aspect as well is that's why I tell people to make their screens red. A red screen is not as fun to look at because
the
dopamine hits aren't there. Turn off your notifications.
Yes.
Because we're like Pavlov's dogs. Ding, whoo, ding. So it's like only you can configure it. So like I get phone calls from certain people, right? I get text messages from certain people. Like I can hear but other than that, I turn off all my notifications.
And you have to physically do that. Like Instagram over the last 3 days, anytime I go on to try to post, it's been doing that to you too.
Me too. It's been like, turn on your notifications.
Blocking the bottom part of my screen to have a little box that says turn on your notifications. And I'm trying to exit out and I've and then it'll take me to the next screen to turn off my notification, turn on my notification. I'm like, the last thing I need to do is turn on my Instagram notifications.
No, what a disaster would that be?
My screen would be full. Because before I had like the account that I do now, I had the Instagram notifications on because I might get one or two a day, but I probably get 1,000 a day.
Right. No way.
Oh, Lord have mercy. No, we will not be doing that, Instagram. But that's
even with those 5 a day or 6 a day, it's like
it's alerting your nervous system. Like sometimes I'll forget to turn because I'm like waiting for a phone call, like an important one. So I'll actually have my ringer on and then it'll be on in the next room. Dr. Sarah will be messaging me on WhatsApp and I'll be like, ding, 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 ding. Cause when you have the friend that you message one another and you can't just like put it all in one message, it's like, and then ding, 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 ding. And then it's like, and I'm in the next room and I'm like, it's like a biological thing. When you hear the notifications on your phone, you get like, what is happening? Your nervous system just gets, and people are literally doing that all day long,
all day long. And so phone on airplane mode, and in some instances, you have to go into the settings, right? In iPhones, you have to go into the settings to toggle that off, make sure Bluetooth is off.
Yes.
So, if you can do that regularly too, then the amount of the amount of radiation coming from your phone, goes
huge
down very drastically. I'm never going to say it's nothing because we don't necessarily know, but it downregulates it drastically. So all of a sudden now you've created a space where your phone is no longer creating a nervous system stressor. Right. Yep. Otherwise it would be a nervous system stressor.
Yeah.
Similarly with lights, I've said this, I've had so many people in my community who are teachers, and I've said this before. It's like, what do you do in a classroom where you want the kids to focus? You turn off the lights.
Yeah.
And it's not just because the lights, the turning off just shocks the kids. That's not the case. You can physically feel in the room, everyone calms down.
Yeah.
And it's because those high energy fluorescent lights overhead are going bing, like, again,
Flickering.
has anyone, we've said this before, take your phone out and take a slow motion video of the lights that you're under,
Yeah.
and you'll see ding, 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 ding. It's like,
Your brain nervous system is dealing with that constantly.
exactly.
Terrible. Yeah. That's one of the things I had when I did find a new school setting for my daughter, because we pulled her out of her old one because it was just terrible. And so she's home with us for multiple months. And I said, us to put her back in anywhere, we're doing lamps and I choose the bulbs.
Yep.
And like they allowed me to design that room that she would be in, because I know like her being in this fluorescent lighting is just making her nervous system even more dysregulated than it already is. And like, we can't. And my sister actually did the same thing. She teaches second grade in a public school. And I told her about it, and I actually showed her the John Ott, the Health and Light, the experiments they did with the kids. She has lamps in her room now that have low flicker, like no flicker bulbs. We filmed them on slow-mo. And she notices a huge difference of the kids that are in her classroom, and the 7, 8-year-old kids. The lighting makes a huge difference on their behavior, the attention seeking behavior, like it's just like a huge difference. And so, yeah, that can absolutely impact your thyroid.
1,000%. These are things that no one ever thinks of, right? And so if your nervous system is telling your body what state of stress or threat or survival threat you're in, scarcity and or calm and peace, right? All of these things that we're talking about, they don't ever get talked about when it comes to thyroid health.
No.
You can imagine now when we go through this lens, and this isn't, we're talking thyroid hormone, but we're also talking about reproductive hormones, right? Cortisol, as well.
Master hormone that affects all leptin. Yeah, exactly. It is related. No, people will send me labs. I know they do this to you as well, and say, this is my thyroid, my TSH, or here's my T3, or here's this. And I'm like, you have to look at things as a whole. You can't just look at one marker and diagnose yourself with something. There's always other factors. And then I send them to Dr. Sarah, because she's like loves to do the lab stuff.
She loves to read them. Yeah.
I don't. I'm like, let's just work on the basics and not stress out about it, because a lot of times when you work on the basics, the things that Carrie and I talk about, you can see a lot of improvements without having to be hyper-focused on one specific marker or number. But the thyroid issues that I'm seeing are growing and growing and growing and happening to younger and younger people. And I definitely think it's something that if you're not addressing these things, you could be taking supplements or even thyroid medication. If you're not addressing nervous system, circadian health, and we can even talk about nutrition, then you're just going to be fighting this uphill biochemical battle. And it's no better than going to a doctor and getting thyroid medication to take a bunch of supplements. It's the same thing. It's just lipstick on a pig. It's not addressing the underlying cause, and specifically like supplementing with nutrients that you might be low on, not going to fit. Why are you low on those in the first place? What mechanism is your body kicking up that is stealing all of these nutrients from your body in the first place to cause this issue? Right. That's where we need to go. What is the terrain like, instead of, let's add this one, and then you're taking handfuls of supplements every day and you're not feeling any better, because your body's going to continue to steal those nutrients. And then when you put something in your body, it's probably not going to recognize it as a chemical substance the same way that if you got it from food or you supported your body's endogenous production of certain things, right?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's kind of like plug and play, body needs that. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Like, we've seen it too many times.
And you're gambling, like, you don't know, like, what can happen.
So if you're leaking, if you're leaking minerals, right? If you're leaking hormones in a way that you're low in your hormones, you're low in you have to ask yourself why. And it's your environment. Your environment is stressful, right? And you have to figure out, what are those main stressors, and what are the stressors that you can control? What are the stressors that might be out of your control that you could potentially respond to in a different way, as opposed to, like, Yeah, I've always been this person, right? Where if I'm presented, so my perfect example is when I play basketball.
Mm.
I play in this men's league, right? And I feel like it's a very healthy stressor because I'm the shortest person there. Okay. Like I'm 43
I
years
just tried to
old.
explain this to my husband the other night. It was like, Carrie plays in a men's basketball pickup league. Like, I just find it really fun.
I know it was like, I remember this, they freaked out because I remember when Jack was, my youngest was like a beautiful surprise for us. And so I remember when I found out, and I remember having to go to them, and like, I walked into the gym, I was like, guys, I'm not going to be here for a while now. And they're like, did you injure yourself? And I was like, no, I'm like 2.5 months pregnant. They were like, you've been playing with 2.5 months pregnant. I was like, one guy was like, I just knocked you to the floor there. And I'm like, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. Right. But like, yeah, no, it's so funny. But like when it's a great environment because for the most part, people are there just for a workout to have fun. Right.
Yeah.
But every once in a while you get a new kid to show up who wants to prove that he's better than everyone and doesn't want to be, I'm a girl. If I pull a 3 in his face, he's not gonna be happy, things like that, right?
Yeah.
And so whenever someone I feel like, does me wrong in a basketball game like that, I have no problem being like, "Bruh, like, what do you think you're doing? Like, we're doing this for fun, like, like I emote, and I'm like, don't you even try to undercut me ever again." I was like, that's dirty, and then like it's done, right?
It's over. You just express yourself and you move on.
Exactly.
I know my husband gets so annoyed with me because I'll do that at home. Like this morning, I had to let out this like huge growl because I was trying to come down here. And like my daughter's getting into everything. And he's like, oh, I have to go take a shower. And I'm like, but I have to get ready. And he, it's just like this whole thing. And then I turn my back and she's getting into something else. And I was just like, rah! I just like let out this huge growl. And he's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I just had to get that out, but like, we're okay now. We can move on. Like, I'm going to go downstairs now. Like sometimes you have to just like, don't stuff it. Don't pull it in. Don't like hurt other people, don't be mean to anybody else, but sometimes you just
got to emote, right? Like I find like that's what my body does, like or every once in a while, I need a good cry.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to cry. I'm just going to cry, and I'm going to cry and cry and cry. And then afterwards, there you go. Right. Like, it's just like emoting, getting it out. Right. And so it's like, we're not saying, like you said, we always have to be in happy-go-lucky land, or that everything is always perfect. It's just,
and nothing bothers you.
Nothing bothers you. Yeah. You can address a stressor, but at the same time, what I used to do that I've really worked hard on was a stressor would appear in my life. And I would address it, but then I would relive it. Like I could remember myself, like I would literally be talking.
Myself doing that. Yeah.
Like Leon, my husband would be like, are you moving your mouth? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like literally having this conversation over again.
Yeah.
In terms of like what I should have said, or like what, blah, blah, blah. And so I've done a lot of work on like being able to let that go,
move on. I know I couldn't do what I do with Instagram and all of this if I lived in that place, because the comments I get sometimes, and I still get like,
they're hurtful.
They're very hurtful. And I just, sometimes I'm like, oh, but you can't live in that place, and you have to just kind of be like, well, that person is having a bad day, or like, that's a reflection of them. It's not necessarily a reflection of me, and just see it that way and move on.
Not as easy, but like
it's easier said than done. But that's why I've kind of just don't read as much as I used to. I have auto responses on for a lot of stuff now. And the people that really want to interact with me can come join my community. And you have a community too. And I have to just do it that way, because otherwise I would literally lose my mind. People, you can't, and even if you don't do what Carrie and I do, like you're always going to have things and people in your life kind of pulling on you in a not so positive way. And you have to just decide at some point, like, me feeding into this situation, me responding to this, and continuing this this loop of communication is not healthy for anybody. And I'm just not going to do it, and what energy you just have to kind of pull back from a lot of that stuff, because I think that's another issue that I see with people with thyroid and people with autoimmune conditions is like this kind of people pleasing, needing to respond, needing to put, like that energy is typically there with people that are dealing with these types of issues, especially thyroid. And I think of like back to my energetics with like yoga, and I kind of have left that world, but I'm dipping my toe back into some of the old principles, but just the throat chakra, right? And like not speaking how you feel and not expressing yourself or
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
oversharing, over talking, over communicating, over involving yourself in things you don't need to. And that
Mm-hmm.
comes back to this thyroid gland, So there's always an energetic component that I think can trump all the good nutrition. And I mean, because I've seen people light hygiene, nutrition, which we'll talk about, which is a lot of low hanging fruit. A lot of people aren't doing, but every now and then I'll get the case of somebody who's doing that. And I'm like, when you actually have a conversation with the people that are in this situation, they're still struggling with the thyroid and stuff like that and autoimmune. I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? How are you perceiving your life? How is your nervous system perceiving what's going on around you? And it's easier said than done, right?
Oh,
But
it totally is. But this has to get brought into the equation. It's
has to.
health isn't just diet and supplements and exercise, right?
No. And it's
This.
not just circadian health either. It's a huge needle mover that a lot of people aren't doing, but you have to address these other aspects too,
Totally. So in terms of like nervous system support, in case people need convincing, because it's easy to be like, yeah, blah, blah, go outside, go into nature. So I'm talking about like a green space, right? Go outside where you can see some trees, right? Something, some right? Get into more of a green space or a blue space, right? And there's things that happen, right? Number one, light, right? You'll sync your circadian rhythm. Boom. The sunlight doesn't flicker, right? So you're not going to be in that flicker stress response anymore. When you earth and you ground, you connect better to the Schumann resonance, which actually brings your brain waves out of a high beta state. The beta brain waves, we need beta, right? That's really thinking and analytical, logical. But at the same time, we're not designed to be in high beta the amount that we are right now. And so we need to learn how to lower those brain waves. And when we actually go outside, that Schumann resonance is a lower pulse, right? It actually brings you the Schumann resonance of 7.83. That's the alpha theta cusp. And then the one harmonic higher than that, that gets you between 14 and 15. That's the low beta. Those are good thinking brainwaves to be in that allow you then to also drop into alpha, that creative, calm state, and then, if ever someone wants to try this, to drop into theta, right, for more of the deeper meditation. And so like those are literally pulses coming from the earth that we're trying to pick up. Earth's geomagnetic field pulses at 0.5 hertz. That's 6 cycles per second. What does that tie to? Resonance breathing. That's a very healthy breath rate that's been studied to optimize things like HRV. What else does that optimize? Well, our breath is tied with the flow of cerebrospinal fluid. There are so many case studies out there where improving the flow of cerebrospinal fluid was life-changing for people. Right. And so
that's Dr. Mauro Zapatera. I had him on, and his whole thing as a Harvard trained doctor, he's like, I treat people that have these cerebral spinal fluid disorders, pain disorders, nervous system disorders. He treats them with Reiki, breath work, like, okay, but
craniosacral therapy.
He's big.
Have you seen the craniosacral therapy sessions with dolphins?
No.
Mind blowing.
Wow.
People go for like these retreats, right? And then they do craniosacral, and then they go in the water with the dolphins. And the dolphins literally swim up to like these participants, and you see the dolphins like honing in on certain people, and then they make these underwater noises that you could pick up.
Oh yeah, I've swam with dolphins before. It's pretty
Dolphins are
You can
insanely
feel it
intelligent.
when they make all the little noises. You can feel it on your spine. I distinctly remember that.
That's exactly what they talk about. It's like they knew that whatever frequencies were being emitted, like people could tell where these dolphins were trying, because the dolphins could somehow, you know, save your comments, people. I know this is weird. But the dolphins were, but the dolphins, people felt like subjectively the dolphins could literally understand where their energetic blockages were in their body, and they could emit sonar or like
I
whatever.
should take Alexis to do that. I think she would love that.
They had a couple of, nonverbal autistic children who they go every year, and every year, like they develop this relationship with the dolphins, and they just, what everyone says is everyone comes away and progresses just to be calmer and more centered.
Okay, I need to take her to Key West like yesterday.
Yeah,
is it in Key West? Where is it?
I feel like this is the Bahamas. I have to look. Gosh, I got to send you the doc. So I think it's Dr. Upledger started craniosacral therapy. I remember doing it in massage therapy school. I had only learned it in
we take Alexis to cranial. I mean, we haven't been able to take her the last few weeks because she's not been feeling well, but she was asking for it. We have a therapist. His name is Tony. And she's been seeing Tony since she was 3 years old.
Nice.
On and off. He's excellent. And so she has an old iPad from school that's just like a touch chat where you can select different people. And I guess Tony was programmed in there from like 5-6 years ago, something like that. And she was at her IEP meeting, or we were at the IEP meeting, and the teachers were like, why does she keep asking for Tony? Who is Tony? Like, and we're like, wow. Oh, she was. So we've been taking her back, and it's definitely helpful.
Yeah. It's just, if you can imagine if that fluid can't flow in that rhythm, if that rhythm gets thrown off.
We've done 2 spinal taps, and the first one we did, the opening pressure was like crazy high, the opening pressure was very high. And that's why I reached out to Dr. Zapatera, because I was like, what is going on? And then her protein levels were elevated, which is like the standard medical model is, she's got autoimmune encephalitis, like her immune system's attacking her brain. And it goes back, like they're tracing it through spinal fluid the pressure being up too high, and also protein levels being elevated.
And they test toxins in CSF?
Yeah. And they test white blood cells. If her white blood cells were not elevated, but they also test for certain antibodies and things like that, but yeah, it's an emerging, that's what I have to go back to. Like, why is this an emerging thing? Like, why are people now getting, not even just kids like her getting this condition, but like typical, quote unquote, neurotypical. I know some neurotypical families who've been through hell with this condition. But I just question, it's like the same thing with thyroid, like autoimmune. Why is this exploding? What is going on?
I do think toxins come into play with this too, right?
Low exclusion zone water.
Exactly.
And overburdening of toxins. That's why we didn't send her back to her old school, is because there was mold in that school and they weren't doing anything about it. I sent an inspector out there, and the inspector was like, do not send her back to that school. The levels of mold inside that school are toxic. Wow. And she had been there for years, Wow. And I could smell it when I went in there, but that's one of the reasons after her ICU stay, I was like, she's not going back to that school. No, we're not doing it. She's got to stay here. I don't care if I like lose my mind with her being home 24 hours a day. Like, I do not care if she can't go back there. Because and people live in these buildings that are, heavy with mold. We've got glyphosate. We've got, you live in a big city like we do here, and there's just cars passing by, pollution. There's so many things, not to mention things getting sprayed on our food, drinking out of plastic. It's insane. So Carrie, I don't know about you, but I'm doing a couple little trips this summer. And what is the one thing that you're definitely going to be bringing with you on your packing list?
I love portable red light therapy for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yes. You can't underestimate, honestly, what red light therapy can quote unquote treat or support when you're away from like eating something that disagrees with you, to like your kid
Mm.
falls and scrapes the knee and you want to do a little extra repair and support, to a headache, to an earache, to like you name it, or and just then as general maintenance, right? Or like let's say
Yep.
you're at the beach, you want to precondition your skin, right? All these things,
Yep.
and
Or you're traveling on an airplane and you want to kind of offset some of that mitochondrial damage that's going to
totally.
naturally happen from being in a plane. Like I know Dr. Sarah brings her this is our Bond Charge Mini, and you can use the code Quantum Pod to save on yours. But I know she will just kind of put it the
Hmm.
thyroid, right? Because when you're in an airplane, you are exposed to high levels of non-native EMF, and a little panel could be a great way to support your mitochondria to make more exclusion zone water so that there's a little bit of a protective barrier when you're in those high stress environments, right?
Exactly. And then also
No blue light.
in a pinch, I'll use that, like, let's say in a hotel room or something to turn on a light if I need to, right? Because, right. It's just in a pinch, it's a really good way just kind of almost like act as a flashlight or illuminate the space at night, if you
Mhm.
need to for some reason. So I have found so many uses for that portable red light therapy.
Yep, it's awesome. So if you are interested in one of these, you can use the code Quantum Pod. This is by Bond Charge. They are sponsoring the podcast. We really appreciate that. And check them out. There's a link down in the show notes.
I mean, I think a lot of autoimmunity is lack of exclusion zone water in a
Yes.
tissue.
Yes.
Toxins can take hold.
Yes.
The toxins essentially deteriorate cell function. As cell
Yes.
function becomes deteriorates, they can excrete stuff into the space outside of the cell, right?
Yep.
And that's
Mhm.
where the immune system lives. And the immune system is trying to essentially clear up the
Yes.
damage. But and so you get elevated antibodies and stuff. But I don't necessarily think it's the immune system trying to attack a tissue. I think the
No,
tissue is
I think
toxic.
attacking is the wrong word. And then it like puts you on this like, oh God, my body is attacking itself. Like I'm
Oh,
screwed.
what else would cause more fear than hearing that your body is attacking itself? It's like, no, your body is trying to
It's trying to
clear your tissue of something that is causing tissue destruction, right?
there's something in your environment that your body is trying to bring your body back to homeostasis, right? Your body is always trying to come to this healing state, but that is the reaction it's having, whether it's excess fluid, like my daughter with the spinal fluid flowing like crazy. I'm like, it's trying to do something,
Totally.
that's what's happening instead of like, we need to just suppress and,
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to have to just put the fire out a little bit. You can't
There's
can't
always the
reject
potential need.
everything. But you still need to, why is the body doing this? What in the environment is causing this?
Yeah. And then at the same time, like as you have like a tissue destruction, let's say the thyroid, right? It's thyroid
Yep.
destruction because of a toxin of some sort, then what shows up at that site? Well, then you have opportunistic microorganisms to clean the damaged tissue out, right?
Yes.
Like that in the same way, right? And in the same way that an animal it dies in the woods, you got the various microorganisms that come to help to clear that damaged tissue, right? That dead tissue and restore the soil to fertility, right? And so like that's what I really see happening in the body is like, no, your immune system is not out to attack you. It's trying to clear something. And in the process of clearing something, sometimes there is diseased tissue that's outside in that space. Yes. So that might draw the immune system. It might also draw fungal infections. It might also draw the presence of like candida, like you have fungal candida, viruses, right? Like I mean, all of that stuff is in the diseased tissue. It's not trying to attack you.
No, it's trying to clean something up.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just a different way of viewing it. And for me, if someone is dealing with this, the question becomes, what can I do to optimize my environment so my body feels safe? What can I do? What tools do I have in my toolbox? Well, I always tell people, low hanging fruit. And I know this isn't necessarily a favorite of certain people who regulate the nervous system, but one of my favorites is dysfunctional breathing. By itself can keep you in a stressed state because you over breathe. The only time we over breathe in nature is if we're outrunning something that's trying to get us, right? We're fending for our survival.
Right.
And so, that's to me, it's like if someone is an over breather or a mouth breather, It's a no-brainer for me that
Yep.
is something that, so in order to see if that's you, look up on YouTube how to take your Bolt score, right?
Yep.
BOLT. And that'll let you know, because typically if your Bolt score is below 20, and I really see I say below 15-ish, I give people a little bit of leeway there. You are an overbreather. And I can say that because I was a horrible overbreather when I was in my state of most chronic illness. And so I was a mouth breather, overbreather. And so correcting that was amazing to just allow that stress thermostat, that anxiety thermostat to just lower a lot, actually. I slept better at night when I realized that I was a mouth breather. Like think about that as well, how my body could get good sleep and actually feel recovered. So there's so much to that I think is supportive. And then from the lens of like maybe toxins, I make the assumption we're all toxic to some degree, right? Yeah. And it's a combination of building adequate exclusion zone water and having open drainage pathways to allow the body to naturally detoxify. And some people hate this. I'm a huge fan of sauna.
I love it. I love it.
It's a great, it's a great elimination channel, right? There's so much to get eliminated through this that can get eliminated through the sweat.
Yep.
And if you can actually exercise a little bit to generate sweat before you get in the sauna.
I lay out in the sun first.
Lay out in the sun.
That's what I did yesterday. I laid out in the sun on the ground, did some grounding and sunlight. Then I got in the sauna. Then I did a cold plunge and then I did red light therapy. And I was like,
what a beautiful stack.
I was levitating.
Life is great.
And then I had some seafood. It was just beautiful.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. I love that.
It was.
And so it's not necessarily about going through aggressive detoxification protocols.
No.
Some people benefit from it, right? This is not an all or nothing.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, what can we naturally do to get your body back into rhythm? Your body has an elimination rhythm that's likely been impaired because of lack of exclusion zone water, sluggish lymphatic drainage. With hypothyroid, there's, oftentimes constipation becomes an issue.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's liver is overburdened these days. I do see a big connection between hypothyroid and stagnant liver gallbladder.
Yes, so I do too.
That's another one that can really go hand in hand.
Yes.
So, and
you and I are pretty similar. Like we would like to start people, I think, gently. That's the way I do people. I'm like, we really have to work on your circadian rhythms, your darkness at night. That is going to do loads for getting those drainage pathways open because our detox happens on a circadian rhythm. So if your circadian rhythm is off, like your detox is going to be really off, and that leads to a lot of issues. And then once we do that, maybe we add in some like gentle castor oil packs, and you start with those really slowly. Cause I've seen people have like really bad reactions to those if they do them too long or too often. But that was one of the things Dr. Sarah did to get her antibodies to come down while she was here, was she did some castor oil packs on her thyroid and on the liver. She loved those. And then what her and I did, since, we know we do okay with those, is I love, one of my favorite things is to do castor oil, just like put a pack on my liver and my whole gut. I have got a big one. And then when I'm in the sauna, I'll just rub my whole body down with castor oil and sit in there for a good half hour. And then of course, once you get out, you rinse, shower it all, get it all off, because a lot of heavy metals and all kinds of stuff are being pulled out. But that is literally my favorite, quote unquote, detox. And the day after I do that, my husband's always like, my God, you're glowing. Like your skin looks so good. I'm like, yeah. It's
You're like, I just sweat out a bunch of garbage. So.
I do. And then a lot of times that night I'll do an Epsom salt bath too. Like, so I love to stack, and then a little red light in there, just stack all this stuff together. Once your body can handle it, because sometimes you do one of these practices and you have a Herxheimer reaction. I've seen it happen before. So
that's a blocked drainage pathway, people. That's a blocked drainage pathway, or over aggressive, right? On like a killing protocol or something like that.
That's why I don't like all these herbals as a first line. I'm not saying never do herbals and never do any of that stuff ever, but do this stuff first. Don't jump to an herbal if you're not supporting your mitochondria, if you're not supporting those detox drainage pathways, if you're not supporting yourself nutritionally with basic nutrients from your food and giving your body the sense of safety that it needs. Don't just like, you're doing the same thing that you do when you just go to a doctor and get a medication and expect it to fix all your problems, just with like functional medicine. Like I said earlier in the conversation, it's literally lipstick on a pig. Like it's likely going to backfire, you know?
Do you want to talk nutrition?
Yeah, let's do that briefly. Cause
I hate talking nutrition.
I hate it.
I hate it. I mean, I've got a master's degree in clinical nutrition. You used to be the carnivore yogi, right? Like we used to I just hate it. It's so polarizing. It's so polarizing.
And everyone in my group still wants to talk. Dr. Sarah helps me out in my group. And she's like, she'll message me. She's like, there's like 10 nutrition questions in the group right now. And I'm like, I'm going to tell Becky to do them. Like, I can't, like, it's just too much. I do them, but like, I'm like,
okay. Let's talk about step one.
Yes.
Step one, nutrition's important. You can't eat like garbage, right? And have a body that's not inflamed, right?
You cannot eat quote unquote shit on a shingle. I'm sorry. I have to disagree with that statement.
I disagree with that statement as well, because that's through food is really a main route that we get toxin exposed.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. I mean, a lot of that stuff it's hilarious. So one of my kids, and so at school, right, in preschool, my youngest, right, I'm snack mom, like every 20 days, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just had to let it go, in terms of the other snacks that would come in. But I remember when my kids coming home with like extra Cheetos, basically is what I think it was Cheetos, right?
Cheetos, goldfish,
right? It's like, oh yeah. Oh, here, people read your labels. Please. Do you want to know what's now on them?
What
contains bioengineered ingredients?
Oh, you are joking.
I took my kids to the grocery store. Why are we
giving this to children?
Goldfish have it. Like, I know. I took my kids to the grocery store and I was like, this means something your body thinks is absolutely not natural, does not know what to do with it, and will confuse the heck out of your body. Okay.
All foods do not fit. I'm sorry. I said it. It's not a thing. Like, no.
It's not just about counting your calories and then eating whatever the heck. That's not a food. That's not food.
When I see that, my brain doesn't even register it as something I would put in my body for nutrition, for
chemical, right? Like, would you drink a bunch of chemical, right? Because no, I wouldn't. Well, that's just a chemical soup right there is basically what that is.
And I don't care what any of these like mainstream nutrition registered dietitians are saying now about, chemicals, everything has chemical. No, honey, like you can have it. I'm not going to. I'm just not I'm not going to do that. And my kids aren't going to do that, because
we all need to demand it, because there is food. There is literally food scarcity. I know of places where the only location to get food is like is equivalent pantry. To a 7-Eleven. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And go inside a 7-Eleven and see what is actually food in there. We need to start really demanding we got to stop eating that stuff. So that we can allow companies to start to realize that, no, we're demanding better. And so that can filter out to everyone, because there are definitely food deserts out there where there's nothing real. And it's heartbreaking to see that's the only access that someone has to food, unless they hop on a bus or have to travel a lot farther to go to an actual grocery store. And even then, the grocery stores are questionable.
Oh, yeah.
So with food, we have to eat nourishing food to the best of all the nutrient-rich food. My thing, though, I always say before I touch the what, I touch what last, right? When? Breakfast, 8 to 10 hour fueling window, depending on your leptin status, a little bit longer sometimes, depending on your leptin status, time of year, distinct meals.
Yep.
Some people thrive on 2, some people thrive on 3, right? But distinct meals.
Yeah. I do more like 2 in the winter and 3 in the summer, just because the days are longer. It's just
same.
It's just
small meal, 4 or 5 o'clock. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, distinct meals, give your body a chance to get the signaling in between meals from leptin, right? That helps to talk to your thyroid, it talks to your metabolism. I mean, there's so many things that can benefit from that. So distinct meals. And that's finally when I talk about the what, right? The what, and that would be, what have you found to be most beneficial for autoimmune?
I take out all the processed foods and the grains. That's where I start is I'm like, instead of putting you on a specific diet, I'm like, let's get rid of the grains because a lot of those are sprayed. A lot of those have
Mhm. Yeah,
questionable and
organic, if whenever possible, organic.
right. And even sourdough bread, I'm sorry, my friends, but we just let go of the grains. We just do it because there are some things that can uh, interact with the immune system because the immune system sees the grain, the proteins and those things and thinks it's your body's own thyroid gland and will, there are
Well, they
things
also trigger leaky gut in some people, and that's
exactly.
not good for anyone. So anything that I've seen, even sourdough in some people, it increases a chemical called zonulin.
Mhm.
Zonulin's job is to literally create gaps, right? It breaks
Yeah.
down the gut. That these are called tight junctions. We're designed to have a tightly sealed gut that we can
Mhm.
only selectively pull in, right? We've got little hairs that are designed to pull in nutrients and leave the junk so that we can poop it out. And
Right.
zonulin can come in and it can literally put gaps between them. And that's where leaky gut comes into play.
Yep. Exactly. So I'm like, get rid of anything processed and get rid of the grains. Let's go there first. And probably the beans, nuts, and seeds. I know that's a hard one for some people, but like, and they're like, what do I eat? There's like so much food you can eat. Like, don't have that attitude. Cause I get that under my videos when I say this. Well, what do I eat? Oh my God. Like, there's so much you can eat that isn't one of those foods. And
And
like, you still can have a big variety of different foods by eliminating those things.
yeah, and what you're describing is it's very much what you could look at as an autoimmune paleo style
Yeah.
diet,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so there's going to guarantee you there's thousands of websites and books dedicated to that. So there's
Yeah.
tons of recipes.
Yeah.
I used to have clients when autoimmune paleo was one that I would actually give people a decent amount
Mhm.
because I found it to be very anti-inflammatory for a vast majority of
Very. I mean,
people.
that's what we were talking about before we started recording. I had antibodies and thyroid issues in my mid 30s. And then again, they resurfaced in a different way in my 40s. But when I had a quote unquote diagnosis of Hashimoto's, that's what I did was autoimmune paleo and it worked. I was able to get rid of those antibodies and I've largely stayed with that style of eating, gone to the extreme of carnivore for a little while, but I've never had a recurrence of antibodies. I just tested them again when Dr. Sarah was here and we're doing all these testing like labs a million times.
She loves that stuff.
She does. I would never do it unless she was here. Like it was kind of just like we were just doing it together. It was fun. But my antibodies,
Some friends, go
some
go
friends
to
have wine night. Some
you have
friends
let's read our blood work night.
go to Quest Labs. Like it is what it is. But my antibodies were zero.
I can picture the two of you breathing in molecular hydrogen, like you have, and just like reviewing your numbers like together on a couch or something, watching some weird show on TV. Like it's totally what I can picture. Like feet up,
Normal.
just chilling.
Totally normal. I mean, it's cackling on the patio in the morning at like 6 a.m., sun coming up, us like laughing hysterically about something, drinking our hydrogen water with Quinton.
Sarah on an inflatable unicorn.
Oh yeah, the unicorn grounding in the backyard.
Literally anytime I need to laugh, I just picture her riding that unicorn.
The unicorn is still back there and it has one leg now, like the other legs have been deflated. It's like the one leg unicorn. I just leave it because the kids like it. I'm like,
one-legged unicorn.
That's how you deal with thyroid issues. You get a giant inflatable unicorn and ground every morning.
You ride it around your yard. I was talking to my neighbor, my neighbor co-owns a health food store in town it's a lovely health food store, right? Lovely health food store, but just not doing what we do in any capacity. Yeah. And she had something, a condition where I thought she would benefit from molecular hydrogen. So I'm like, do I? So I bought some molecular hydrogen, brought it over to her. She was very open-minded. I gave her one of my books on it, that I had. And I was like, please don't judge me. And I was like, but I really think this will help you. And so she read it. And so like, she caught me the other day, like when I was ending my walk, she was ending her walk. We were kind of chatting. She's like, I stalked you and I now know that you don't do nutrition anymore. Do you? And I was like, no. She's like, what do you do? And I was like, well, yeah, I was like, quantum biology, circadian biology. She's like, is that why you're literally barefoot in the winter outside? I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is. I was like, yeah, I don't tell many people this in town because I don't think it's quite ready to get
No,
out there,
they're not ready.
but at this,
Mm-mm.
I was like, but thanks for not judging me. And she's like, it's interesting. She's like, I don't quite get it, but it's interesting. It's like, it's kind of how this whole thing is. So I was like,
Yeah.
maybe she wouldn't think twice of me now riding around the yard in a one-legged unicorn. She's like, it's just something. Oh, that's just something quantum biology.
Right. Right.
Everyone else would be like, she's batshit crazy.
Exactly. That's pretty much what my family thinks of me at this point. Everyone is like, okay, what is she doing now? All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with the nutrition thing, it's such a hard thing because people are very emotionally attached to foods. And I just am not that way anymore. Like, I'm not emotionally attached to a diet. And that's why I don't even tell people do autoimmune paleo, because then they have to like identify with a specific
Mhm.
diet. I'm like, just get rid of this stuff and like, don't even tell yourself you have to get rid of it forever. Like
Yeah.
maybe in a year, when you're better, when things are in a better spot for your gut, for your thyroid, all of that, if you want to have those foods sometime or just bring them back in and see how you
Mhm.
do, you can. There's
Yeah.
never like, I'm never going to, and that's what I had a trouble with carnivore and the whole carnivore community. It's like, I'm never going to eat dessert again. I'm never going to have sweets. I'm never going to have this food. That food is garbage and it's poison and I'm never eating it again. It's just very like toxic. And I'm like, this is a very
Depressing.
depressing and stressful thing that you're doing to yourself. And I'm so glad I don't like unsubscribe, like unfollow, unsubscribe, do not.
Yeah.
It's a strategy that can be immensely helpful for
It
people when
can.
done strategically. I'm not throwing it out and saying it's garbage. It's a very helpful strategy, but
Mhm.
to have this whole mindset around food that foods are trying to kill you. It's just like, oh, plants are trying to kill you. No, they're not. No, they are not. Like, they're not trying to, I'm sorry, not a thing. Are there anti nutrients in plants that might exacerbate autoimmune conditions? And perhaps it's a good idea to eliminate them while you work on getting your
You're
body
healing.
back into a better spot? Absolutely.
The dose makes the poison though too. Like
Yeah.
literally yes, there are those anti-nutrients and those things that can be considered plant toxins. But at the same time, we're designed to ingest them when we have a
Yes.
healthy gut. And that actually
Yeah.
makes us more resilient,
Exactly.
right?
That's the basis of homeopathy, right? I mean,
Mhm.
is like you take a little bit of a plant toxin and quote unquote, and it helps the body to have an energetic response to that to bring about positive healing in the body. Like that's why I love homeopathy. And I think it's very entangled with quantum biology
Mhm.
and the things that you and I teach, is because it's kind of like you're not suppressing something in the body, you're supporting something in the body. Now, I wish I
Yeah.
could get homeopathy to work for my daughter. I've not yet been able to do that. But for me and for my son, it has been helpful for a lot of things. Like anytime I feel like I'm coming down with something and my
Yes.
throat is scratchy, I'll take belladonna. Now, that
Mhm.
remedy may not work for you,
No,
but it
remedies are very specific to the person's constitution.
energetics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like chamomilla for my son, boom, he's great. The teething pain stops and he's not screaming and
Yeah.
trying to like gnaw on his hand. Me, if I have a little bit of a sore throat, I have a little belladonna, sometimes take it every 2 to 3 hours. Next day, wake up, totally gone.
Mhm.
Now, but because that remedy energetically works for me and my constitution, same thing with him and the chamomilla. So, everyone's always searching for this kind of like one size fits all, and that you can't necessarily do that with nutrition.
No.
It
I
just
mean,
doesn't work that way.
the template you just laid though is a great starting point. And then I tell people, if you got an inflamed gut too,
Mhm,
you have to
mhm.
play around with how many carbohydrates and what kind of
Yes.
carbohydrates your body can handle, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone about having to really cut back temporarily on
Yeah.
plant fibers, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Because I really think it was exacerbating some gut issues.
Oh, yeah.
But it's again, the goal isn't necessarily they're not evil, right?
No.
The goal isn't for this individual to be off of plants the rest of her life, right? Unless she wants to be. It's just this is potentially increasing inflammation.
Yes.
Let's pull them away. Let's go more carnivore. Let's see what a month or two looks like that, and see how your body responds,
Yeah.
you know? And then as your gut heals, like we're designed to be able to eat whatever the heck we are designed to eat.
Be resilient.
Food, right? I'm not talking about Twinkies. I'm talking about, we are designed to eat food,
right?
Of all sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're not talking about going to the store, and if it comes in a box, or it has a commercial on TV, it's probably not something you want to be eating. It's a very simple rule. It just is. And so we have to like retrain our brains as well to what we think about as nourishment. And that can take time. And I talked about this with Sarah quite a bit, as like this whole emotional thing that we're doing with food. I'm not saying you can't ever eat a food for enjoyment or have soul food, like there's something to, when you're sick, having that chicken noodle soup, there's something obviously healing in the broth, but also it's like soothing to your body to have that warm, sustenance. And so I'm not saying you can never get any emotional enjoyment from food. I enjoyed when I went to Miami this week, I got, the works room service, I was like, yes, check. Yes. Yes. Then I went walking on the beach at sunset for an hour and sat out, and it like, there's a balance, and my body was fine. I didn't gain 10 pounds and I didn't have a bunch of inflammation, and my body could handle it. But maybe 10 years ago, if I had done that, I would have probably felt pretty bad. So it's all about building resilience in the system, and temporarily sometimes getting rid of those things so that your body has a chance. It's not having to throw up defense mechanisms against the foods that you're adding in. And when you're doing a bunch of grains and sometimes nuts and seeds and beans and things like that, your body sees it as something it has to attack. I don't like to say attack, but like there's an immune response to a lot of those foods. And they've actually been shown to block the leptin receptor in the brain. I found that when I was doing my leptin practitioner training, was that some of these foods actually literally can bind to the leptin receptor and block that communication. And so, it is a thing. So I think sometimes when we look at the thyroid and autoimmune, it can be very helpful to adopt some very simple nutrition principles and not to have a mindset of like all or nothing and like this is forever. This is to give your body a chance to come back into more of a healing state and sleep better, let your body make more melatonin, get the sunlight on your body, on your skin, reestablish the signaling and fix the detox pathways and all of the things we talk about. Get more to the root cause than other methods I've tried and seen other people try.
Exactly. So to summarize it, right? Like you said, circadian stuff, light stuff, nervous system through the lens of nature and other techniques that you might have in your toolbox, nervous system through understanding your breath. If foods that are not inflammatory, right? Nutrient rich foods that are actually foods and are not likely to be inflammatory to you, eating within a circadian specific time, right? In a circadian friendly way. And then that is when, and then, okay, I am going to say, right? Like if you're drinking fluoridated water, not good for your thyroid, right?
Water and air are basics.
Clean water, clean air. Clean body care products, right?
Yes.
There are things that we could. Have we done toxins yet? We can maybe do toxins.
Maybe do toxins next week. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of toxins, but I like to highlight a couple that I find over and over again that I think are really very, very prevalent and detrimental to be aware of, and that's very true of thyroid. So beware of fluoride for sure. But then once we've done that stuff, that's the lens through which I then say, what about iodine?
Yeah.
Right. What about, is this person overburdened with halogens, and do we need to do something to support that? Right. Like it's not a first line.
Yeah. That's the first thing I get anytime I talk about thyroid is, are you supplementing with iodine? I'm like, I don't recommend that.
I recommend it. I recommend it all the time, depending on the case by case. I'm not anti-iodine, but there's a lot of ways you can do iodine. You can take the skin. You can take it internally. There's different versions, different formats. And I'm not gonna say I recommend all the time, but it's freely. I recommend it freely for people, but it's not my first line in any way, shape, or form.
I've just seen people overdo it, and it actually create issues. Like I've seen people actually get Hashimoto's from overdoing the iodine. So I'm just like,
yeah, I've not seen that. But you can't. If you overdo iodine, you can get a rebound one way or the other. You can go hyper or hypo.
Yeah.
And it's not my first line of defense, but it can play a role. But like, that's why I like to see what all these other things do first.
Yeah, do all these other things first. And then if you want to do iodine, talk to Carrie, don't talk to me. Join Carrie's
by
group.
Case basis, a case by case.
And don't talk, Dr. Sarah doesn't like it either. So talk to Carrie.
Well, I also like iodine because it improves the dielectric constant of water, right? Actually, if someone's deficient, they can't charge their water. They literally can't charge their exclusions on water. So, I mean, there's things to be aware of with that I think really can fit into this conversation.
Yeah.
But still then, guess what I'm going to recommend first before you actually do iodine?
All this other stuff that we just talked about, right?
And a sea vegetable powder, right?
Yes. That's what I'm like, are you eating any seaweed?
Seafood,
are you eating any seafood? Are you getting iodine and selenium from those natural sources? Are you doing salmon roe? Like what's your diet like? You know, are you just sticking to poultry, ruminant animals? Like what is, eggs? Like you need to have some seaweed, some kelp, some seafood. That's crucial. Like I eat seafood probably 5-6 times a week, if not more.
My body craves it.
When I was in Miami, I was like seafood, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No, not breakfast, but like I ate seafood the whole time I was there. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. I gotta go, but okay. Do we talk about enough in terms of thyroid today?
I think we did. I think we covered it pretty well.
All right.
We'll talk about toxins next time.
Okay. Deal.
All right. Bye.
Bye.